This is Kitten Features, and you're listening to ShowX Live with Ken in a student accommodation all the way in Scotland, and Wayne in his white windowless van? Uh-oh, I better get out of here. Enjoy the show!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to ShowX on VtWProductions.com. Listening live at 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. GMT, this Sunday, the 22nd of March 2020, and welcome to the show. Sorry, I was clicking buttons between things. I was like, wait, this one, nope, that one, I get the right button, and finally found it. So here we are, ready to go for you again today. Welcome. And how are you doing today, Sir Ken?
I'm good. I don't have coronavirus. I was trying to drown myself in soup because I made food far too late. I made my lunch far too late, so I was trying to just like devour it all as quickly as I could, like 2 minutes ago. And apparently, the passageway from your mouth to your lungs is not the correct way to your stomach.
No,
and I've learned that. I'm going to have to put up a signpost or something in there because I keep seeming to put stuff down the wrong direction. But it's okay. That's okay. Welcome to the first ever ShowX, which is online. For the first time ever, ShowX is actually on the internet to ensure social distancing. So thank you so much for listening in to the online version of our vidcast.
Compared to every other day where we just do it because I know it's fun.
Yeah, we just do it offline to a mirror, actually. So thank you for joining us online. This show is not sponsored by hand sanitizer, but please use it anyway.
Let alone sponsored by anything.
Yeah, right. Well, we are sponsored by Audible, actually.
Oh, that's true. We do have our Audible one. Again, I keep forgetting because we haven't done anything for a while. I need to make sure we keep pimping it out.
I sent out the occasional link, like, hey, dude, remember this thing exists. They actually have a special deal on right now. They're giving away, I think it's in the UK only, I'm not sure, but they're giving away 100 free books for everybody. Wow. Not credits, like specific titles.
Yeah, no, I saw some things with that. Actually, it was Audible. I saw another one here. I was going to grab an article for it. That they had a couple variations of books from kids' books to a couple other ones, just genre-wise, as well as certain languages, in response to people having to be stuck at home.
Which I love, by the way. I mean, like, as much as I hate, capitalist stuff and industries and the likes, I do like the fact that at least they're responding for the sake of future profits, right? I mean, at least they're doing something. Any company that looks good at the end of this is going to do better in the future, right? So, I think all companies out there should be trying to help everywhere they can. I noticed that BP in the UK, the obviously the British Petroleum Company, their petrol stations or gas stations are saying free petrol, free gas for all emergency vehicles, and I think they're also doing free coffee for all emergency workers. So if you drop in there, you get some free lunch and stuff as well, I think, which is very nice. I like to see that. I know McDonald's is doing similarly. You get free hot drinks as a emergency worker during this time. So
very cool.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice to see. Anyway, yeah, I'm good, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. It's been, how do I say? I am actually doing fine. At the same time, I think almost in reaction to everything we've been discussing, looking at news and things like that, I am perhaps feeling more isolated than I really am. Because for me, this is my regular weekend going so far for the most part, other than one set of plans I had that got canceled. And so I have, as I'm looking into what's going to be my next week coming up, I am feeling perhaps more isolated than I really am, if that makes any sense.
Yes. Well, I mean, like, in reality, most of us are not actually in the middle of nowhere. We're all in apartment blocks or, rows of houses. So around us, there are still thousands of people. But it is a zombie land out there, isn't it? Have you tried going for a walk or anything?
So, not today. I had gone for a run my normal Wednesday last week. In fact, I'll make sure to go ahead and just start us off with a bit of
Dysfunctional Deviations.
And as I'll get into my dysfunctional deviations this week starting, all of last week I worked as I normally do at work. My office space hadn't been truly affected. There was a lot of planning going around for how we would react, interact, change things up to ensure we're doing social distancing and things like that, and to try to keep us from potentially risking the environment I work, because we have a necessary job that needs to continue functioning.
Sure.
And so there's a lot of things that people are doing just kind of get prepped for it. The challenge I had, like a lot of other people out there, is in my workforce and the way my contract is set, we aren't supposed to get paid for any time we are not working and actually at my job space. And that's kind of how it's written into the contract. And so it's interesting because we're in this new era of pandemic where it's changing or challenging the norms and what we've all planned for. Anyhow, so I worked all last week like normal. The one major difference I did, or slight difference, is because most of the restaurants and things like that around town are in Colorado, as well as a lot of places in the U.S., are closed for anyone to do inside dining. And so they're still doing takeout, and they're still doing drive-through and things like that. I ended up not quite fully social distancing in that I met up with one of my friends that does the Run Club on Wednesdays, and we still went there. We wanted to support the local business, and so we did the run ourselves, even though the club was not going on that week. And then as we came back, we ordered in wings like we normally do, got them to bring them out to us, and they were very good about everything being clean and gloves and things like that. And then we went across to, because normally we'd sit for beer and wings, we went to the local gas station right there and each grabbed like a can of beer and then walked back down to the park, sat and had our own little picnic essentially after to maintain our routine for the run. And so did that. It wasn't our whole group, and unfortunately half of our group had been up to areas in the mountains that our workplace said if you had visited, because that's where some of the outbreaks were in the state, to not come to work and to self-quarantine. And so they are basically sitting in their apartments for 2 weeks. They did not come out, of course, because they're actually quarantined, not just isolation. And so did that. I also did go to a friend's house on Friday, to John and Beck's house, where we hung out and kind of chatted up, made a point of not sharing the couch with them kind of thing, but sitting in another chair and little bits. Not complete social isolation, but still being aware. And so some of that with the social side of things. So it's been interesting for me with that sense. I'm fine. As far as I know, I have not been impacted, interacted with anyone that is sick or showing symptoms or anything like that. I have felt fine this whole time, all that. With that said, I do know that I'm going in this next week where I got notice from my workplace that I will not be going into work tomorrow. And hopefully they will be finding ways for us to continue to support the contract as best we can from home. And there's going to be a challenge there, and we'll see how I deal with that. It's a lot of uncertainty still, because the hope is for some points I'll be able to direct charge the contract. For other points, I may have to eat some of it if the entities I work for do not choose to cover this time out of profits, out of overhead, things like that. Then I may be forced to use any other time that I'm not at work out of my own PTO, which we'll see how that works out. Yes, it's one of those things that hopefully it's not an issue. I am at least fortunate enough that I have that option either way, that I do have PTO to be able to pull from. I know there's a lot of our viewers that don't necessarily have that. And so I am fortunate that say I will be fine either way, just an inconvenience and an uncertainty for how I will be managing the next week or two. We'll see.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's surely... this definitely sucks for most people, and I really think the government needs to kind of step in here. And I've said this all the time. I've said this for weeks now, right? I mean, the government needs to step in, and it needs to say, "Hey, look, we realize that the vast majority of people in the U.S. Are going to be affected to some extent by this, especially when it comes to people who work in public service jobs, and so they need to be able to, have some kind of payment, because if we don't support the people who, are the actual physical front line right now that we need to keep our society working at all, really, then the society's gonna fall. You know, we need to support them in every way we can. And I hope the companies all step in and think and say, hey, maybe we shouldn't be thinking about our frontline profits right now. Maybe we should make sure our employees can actually get paid, right? And actually
It'll
survive.
be interesting to see how this finishes up where we're at several months from now. It's definitely having an impact, and we'll see how it lasts. I have my opinions of things. I tend to believe that any stimulus that's going to happen in this nation probably needs to focus on the individuals who are most likely without work. I
Yep.
do not agree with the concept of feeding money into the people who already have millions of dollars as to somehow making that a way that everyone else is going to, get paid from it. It doesn't make sense to me.
The
And it
trickle
doesn't-
down theory.
it's an
yes.
economic philosophy I've never seen proof that makes me believe in.
No.
As well as I don't think that helps people who aren't working for massive companies that are going to get screwed by this. And I hate what I've seen for some of the proposals that are essentially focused all about giving money to wealthy people. When it trickles down to it, or when it really does focus on what they're suggesting, that's what it is. And I don't agree with that. I
Well,
actually
that's the
believe
thing.
that the best option would be or the most impactful directly for people, is for money lenders to all be able to forego rent and mortgage for a month or two. That I think that would have the biggest direct impact on almost everybody.
Yeah, not just the mortgage owners, because I saw that's a thing around the world. A lot of mortgage owners have been told, don't worry about payments for a couple months. The problem is some of them are also saying, don't worry about payments for a couple months, but then you need to pay them all in 3 months, right? So a 3-month whammy. That's not so good,
No,
right? That's
it's
not really gonna be
literally
helpful.
doing a delay on payments would
Yeah.
be much better.
Yes.
It's harder with rent, makes sense with mortgage, because with lenders, when it comes to anything, credit, lenders, things like that, you can push that back because you just rewrite the contract and put a thing in there that says, we paused it for 2 months, and so you'll pay for 2 months longer. But it allowed you to still have the income coming or whatever money you'd have during that pause period.
Yeah.
Slightly harder to do with rent because there are terms to rent for how long your lease is and things like that. But still something I think should be looked at.
Well,
That's-
just because it's harder to do doesn't mean it shouldn't be done. I mean, the people who
Yeah,
rent
yeah.
are usually the worse off, right?
I
So
don't know
they
the
need help.
specifics to how you would do it, but that's at least where I think it would make the most impact directly.
Yes.
So we'll see what happens with the financial side of things. I know some of the other things locally in Denver and Colorado area, positives, I guess you will say, that have come out of some of this is that the local leadership, state and city leadership, have been very active in trying to combat things on our end. And so while they're putting in restrictions and advising people how to interact, some of the things they are lessening or allowing people to do in businesses is they've actually allowed where a lot of these restaurants, when they're doing takeout, are also being allowed to serve alcohol as takeout. That you can actually order alcohol
Nice.
with your meal, and such that you can get your full restaurant experience. And I know one of our ones that we support, Launchpad Brewery, local friends of mine and stuff, they right away got to a point where we can't let you into the actual inside the building, but we can take your orders, and they actually opened up an online order, so you can order growlers and cans online, and they will present it to you when you get there. Super
We've
cool.
had lots of local businesses doing the same thing, and I think it's wise because not only does it help keep the business afloat, but it also helps the people in the communities who have been struggling to go out to. Like, think about people who right now were already affected by health issues, right? So maybe somebody who's in a wheelchair, and has low mobility, and suddenly isn't allowed to go into shops anymore, and being somebody able to deliver food to them is really, really important. I mean, it's not just like
thank God.
supporting the local business. You're actually helping the community by staying open.
Yeah, and thank goodness for situations like Grubhub, as a service, as well as though things like local grocery stores and bigger box stores that do grocery, who have had delivery for some time now, and now it's getting exercised even more. I've also seen a lot more places doing essentially, pre-order online, come and we will bring it out to you, delivery type things into the lot. Lots of ways that businesses are interacting with. And so I've seen a lot of positive outcome from that. I've seen on, one of the applications that some people who are homeowners or live in certain areas will say good or bad. Nextdoor, which is a community app, lets you monitor your neighborhoods and other neighborhoods around you and how people social interact there. I've actually seen several examples of people offering services for people who can't get out or are immunocompromised or things like that don't want to risk it, where they said, hey, I've got young, healthy kids, more than happy for us to go do grocery shopping for you, things like that, and we'll drop them on the door and those kind of things. So I've also seen some good instances of community coming together, which has been really cool. So that's been fun.
Let's also talk a little bit about that human spirit aspect, because that was one of the things I had in my notes that I wanted to talk about, is not only in the news, the obvious things, everybody's seen the Italy singing videos, right? They're all over Facebook, all over YouTube. All these people hanging out at their windows and singing together. But, I mean, also, we're seeing a lot of ingenuity. We talked about I don't think we talked about it last week, so I think it was in the last week, but we talked about 3D printers.
3D printers, I've seen it with vacuum forming, things like that, of a call out for groups to help produce their own what you can for medical supply things, anything from masks to face shields and things like that. They've
managed to retrofit the ventilators that are actually helping people like just stay alive, like not like cure them or anything, but just keeping them alive.
It's keeping more things out there for medical professions that have the tools necessary to help people just who are suffering through the disease, those people who are, especially the respiratory part of it, where the lungs are collapsing, things like that.
Yes, but they actually managed to retrofit the machines with some 3D printed parts, which is so that now one ventilator is no longer for one person, but for 8, and sustaining all of their lives.
I have not heard of that one.
Yeah, it's a big thing right now, because if you think about it, you know, the amount of people need ventilators right now is insane.
One of the big issues they're talking about is whether or not there are enough ventilators, because they have said there are certain hospitals, especially in Italy and such, that have been overwhelmed by the number of just cases of people coming in needing direct care. And so they talked about, and that's one of the things we hear a lot of. I've been paying attention a lot to our to the U.S. reaction to it and the presidential briefs and things like that each day coming out talking about the response. And one of the big questions that keeps coming up is those stockpiles of medical tools, of ventilators, masks, shields, and everything. And so even with the 3D printing, one of the challenges has been just, are there enough of those valves? And my side, what I saw is a lot of people showing that there was a company, because initially there's the plus and minus. There's the economic side that bothers me, because there's a lot of these companies, and even the administration has been saying, oh, these companies are going to produce more and more and more, and then put it on the free market for everyone to argue over and purchase, versus helping set up just direct distribution or things to keep costs minimal such that you're not profiting off of a pandemic, that you're instead doing what's right to make sure everyone's covered without negatively taking from the companies, meaning they're not giving them additional loss, but you're also not allowing them to make additional profit. It's sustain
that's
while
key.
Produce, right?
Right. I mean, like, we have to remember this is a capitalistic society, and in many places, private industries are part of the medical scene. And in Italy, that seems to be the case for at least the parts for machines and such. And they do deserve compensation, because, quite frankly, they'll fall over if they don't, right? So the government couldn't mandate you must hand these over and make them for free. That would be ridiculous.
Although that's similar to what's being done with the whole Defense Act.
Well, yeah, but hopefully the government will be able to step in and say, it's kind of like what the government has the power to do in certain emergency circumstances with houses, right? They can actually say, for whatever reason, we need to take your home. We now own it. We will give you market value. I mean, it sucks for the homeowners, but they should get fairly compensated. And a similar situation should happen with this kind of thing, with an epidemic, such as coronavirus. These people who are producing the parts for 3D printers to make valves and such, or the actual original creators of the valves, they should be fairly compensated by the government in order to produce enough for the general public without having to worry about selling and buying and who gets what. It should just be a done deal from the get-go, a big, massive contract, right? I think that'd be the best way to do it. I want to give it also a mention to Daedalus DX in the chat, who mentioned that the people who made who actually did the 3D printing of those parts, are apparently getting sued. An article from 3 days ago, this is from plasticstoday.com, says that OEM threatens to sue the startup that saved lives by 3D printing medical valves. So that's interesting. I'm assuming that's because it's proprietary intellectual property, right?
In essence, they copied the design, thus making direct replacement parts. And so now the company who makes a significant amount of money off of selling these valves is basically trying to sue. Now, I will say in response to that as well, I have seen around the 3D printing community, there are people who have since designed an open source version of the Valve that does not patent infringe or even risk it. And so that company can itself, as far as I'm concerned. This is another one where I don't care what they think. This is for an emergency. They can screw themselves. I hope that any actual action legally that comes up gets thrown out swiftly, because screw those douchebags, essentially.
I hope the government turns around and sues them and says you have broken laws because you're causing harm in an epidemic and profiting off it. That should be, if it's not illegal, it should be, right? I mean, I don't understand how money and green can get in the eyes of people who
but that's one of the problems is if you really pay attention to a lot of the responses, especially in the US, you'll see how money is still a primary function of it. I mean, there was the discussion, there's the concern about when information was presented to the public versus to those who are policymakers and their reaction and the timing of when they did things like sell stocks versus when they told people, and the potential to save their own financial arses from it. You'll see throughout, I think, and this is true, I think, everyday life when it comes to decisions from up high, look at where the money is. And unfortunately, a lot of this is still, I would say, heavily influenced by money. And so be aware. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it comes out. But I am hopeful with this aspect for the 3D printing and the open sourcing of it, that we may get more and more of that kind of crowdsourcing effort of people redesigning what have been finite or very exclusive machines, tools, things like that for medical procedures. Wouldn't it be great if more and more things got open sourced? Things that allowed, in essence, countries that don't have massive resources to make their own full-on hospital tools and supplies based on things like 3D printing or some other kind of simple manufacturing. Because I have been so mad at how commercialism and capitalism have destroyed the original goal of patents and copyright protection of allowing someone to profit for a very short period of time before something became every part of society, became public domain, and how that's been bastardized. I love this aspect of people coming up with their own means and hope that we see more of this that basically takes that back, because these are the kind of things that anybody should be able to get access to.
Because you know what? The most profitable thing about people doing this is not, to them, should not be the literal profit. It should be the fact that they know that they've helped society, right? Whether you've written a great book or you've come up with a great scientific theorem, or whether because that's the thing, in science, most of these things are not private. Most of these things that scientists do end up going into the public spectrum, because why wouldn't they?
Well, they're doing science.
When
a
new drug is discovered, it should be out there, right?
Man, pharmaceuticals, you dirty, dirty, rich bastards.
Yeah.
Every pharmaceutical out there, it should be the same kind of thing. Generics should be available within 5 years of any new treatment or pharmaceutical being produced. Screw them and the ability, and it happens in the U.S. all the time, when we spend hundreds of dollars on any specific thing to have other countries spend tens of dollars, if that. Insulin's one of the big ones I keep hearing about, where here insulin can go $500 or more, where in other countries it's $50 or less.
I know a few people here with diabetes, and I know lots of people back home with diabetes, and it's just mad to me that there's such a disparity. I mean, people here who have diabetes, they have a high chance of just dying from it because they can't afford the drug. Well, it's madness.
It's because the U.S. is so focused on a insurance-driven payment structure where, it doesn't matter, we'll just charge the person $50 a month for it, and we'll charge the insurance hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars a month for it, so we get paid. And that is so dirty and wrong, and should be.
Well, the problem is nobody has insurance, right? I mean,
they base it off because they basically focus that the majority of people do, and then people like me have insurance and don't use it often. So I basically pay for a bunch of other people's. So I am a big fan of doing things to make it equal for all and such. So yeah, I'm just, woo. So it's a mess. But I am very happy to see, again, how many people are reacting to it in a positive way and try and find actual solutions to the problems. And I'm a big advocate for what I've been seeing them doing, and hope that it continues beyond just this effort, that we see more of this become a common thing.
Sorano says, "My uncle never would have been able to afford insulin in today's economy." This is Beck. Yeah, I know, right? Like, my gran had diabetes, and when she was, well, when she was alive, that is, and for 15, 20 years, she was living on a state pension. So, she was living off of the government, and that was fine. I mean, it covered her rent. She had some spare money. She'd go to the bingo every week and have a good time, and that was her life. And when she got diabetes, she got drugs for it, and that's fine. That was just parcel of being like an elderly person or just a citizen of the land, right? Here, I don't want to think about what would have happened to her, because I imagine she wouldn't be able to afford her insulin and probably would have had to make a decision between food and the drug. And why is that ever a decision? Or start rationing it, like I've heard people do as well. That's just crazy.
People who are just trying to have enough to be able to get through whatever the thing is. So that being a discussion in general, I'm also concerned because I wish that our nation, that the U.S.'s response from on high was consistent and accurate with science. I have a problem when I see a lot of things spoken that are, in one way, it sounds like trying to say, don't panic a whole lot, but done in such a way that it's more like, I'm mad when everybody says that these numbers are getting higher. I'm mad when it gets shown that there is actually issues, like a lot of trying to see no evil, hear no evil type thing. And that bothers me, because it's one thing to be accurate with the numbers you're reporting, which I think is what our governments should be doing. And then how you respond to people. I have so many issues where people try to say this is time to come together and not be partisan, and then the next breath get partisan as heck. It bothers me a lot. Anyhow,
I agree. No, it's an interesting point. I've seen very similar things with people being just dumb and ignorant with the coronavirus in general and harming those around them because of it. One of the things I saw in the news this morning was the students out of spring break, right? I mean, these kids are in beaches in California and the likes. And up until 2 days ago, when the beaches were forcibly closed, only then did the students stop partying as much, right? All these people up and close and personal, swaying on each other, doing God knows what, right? Having a good time. Fine, fair and all. Like, hey, I'm liberal as heck. You go enjoy yourself. I get it. That's fine. It always comes with the side note of just be safe, And when the death rate is at least 1% everywhere, but generally speaking, it's about 5 to 6%, right? Like, if you look at Italy, it's mostly men in their, I think it's like their 40s, 50s, and 60s and above are the most likely to get hit. Men are the ones who are dying the most from this, and the elderly at that, especially middle-aged elderly. And so, yeah, you may think to yourself, oh, well, I'm a student. I'll be fine. I'm in my 20s. I'll be fine. I have a good immune system. I've never been ill. I'm not immunosuppressed, so why should I bother? And I saw people saying that at the, they're being interviewed. People were literally saying, well, why should I care, right? I'm going to be fine. One, you're not necessarily going to be fine. There are people in their 20s who have died with this who had no previous health issues. There is no guarantee you will survive this. Yeah, you've got a good chance of it, but why are you risking it? That's like saying, I don't know, oh, this plane has a 1 in 100 chance of crashing. Do you want to get on it? Right? Like, we think it's fine. It'll probably be fine. In reality, planes, are tens of thousands per ride. The chance of
planes are one of the safest specific ways of moving.
And we take that risk because that makes sense. But taking the risk of going where it's a 1 in I don't know. In a place like that, your chances of getting it are so high. Now, the second problem is not just your own health. It's those you come back to and those that you spread it on, right? So they say the virus can exist for 2 days outside of a person. So let's just say when you're staying on these beaches and you're having fun in the hotels or wherever you stay, the clubhouses or wherever, let's say that you don't wash all of your clothes thoroughly when you go home. Let's say that you don't wash your hair and your beard and your surfboard or your party gear thoroughly. Because guess what? They're students, right? They're not going to be particularly good. They're probably going to take their stuff home to wash it because it's probably more economical and they want to enjoy themselves while they're there. I get that. But that means that they're going to be bringing home a bunch of sweated stuff that's probably covered in the little bits of this virus all over it. So even if they themselves don't have it on them, but they brushed against something that did, And what if their poor mother or their poor grandmother ends up touching their clothing, right?
The key
That's when it
is
starts getting really scary.
it is very easy to have the virus continue on. It can be airborne for the numbers keep changing on the specifics of how it transmits from 30 minutes to 3 hours, that it can stay on surfaces depending on what it is, up to a day, and that it can be the real big one is it can be in somebody who is doesn't show any symptoms for weeks without and still be contagious for others. And so it is easy to spread. It's why we continue to see the numbers go up significantly. It's why, depending on which source you look at, but in the U.S. we currently have, 31,000 cases, of which we've had 390 deaths, 176 people recovered, and we know we still aren't testing nearly as great as we should. There's reports that China is suppressing their numbers.
Yep.
That while they're saying that they're on a point where they have leveled their curve, as they talk about, there's a lot of things that have shown that they are not reporting accurately. And so we'll see. We continue to increase at the same rate that Italy has. And where Italy right now is over 5,400 deaths.
Could you possibly screen share that one image that I just sent you? It's a link to an image. Just to really hammer this point home, even though lots of places in the US and most of the US is now, self-isolating, and we're taking steps to try and solve it. The problem is that not many vectors are required to really spread this. So we really need everybody to self-isolate. Like even if 80% of people do it, but 20% don't, that's not really enough. We need as many people as possible. Just the people who need to go out for survival purposes should go out. Because if you look at the graph that we're going to put up in a moment, that's the total coronavirus cases in the US. And this is from, I think it's from Forbes. Yeah, it's Forbes. So this is a quite trustworthy source. And if you look at the direction of the curve, I don't think you need much in the way of statistical analysis training to understand how exponential curves keep going in a certain direction, right? And guess what? Even with all of our isolation and such, it's going to keep heading upwards. No matter what we do, it's going to keep heading upwards. The point is how fast upwards it goes. Because what we're seeing in Italy right now, and can I just take a moment, by the way, to say how heartbreaking it is to see all these stories from Italy. All these people who are dying right now from the lack of ventilators, all the elder. Oh, there's this one. Hopefully, I've still got the article up. I want to give a particular thank you to Dr. Gino Fisoli. He was 73 years old. He was an Italian guy who was a family doctor and an emergency room manager. In Africa, they even kidnapped him to cure the sick years ago. Then he retired. Days ago, he received a phone call asking him to help out. He came back and helped, and he was infected by COVID-19, and he has died. It should be in the chat. I see it. So that's Dr. Gino Fisoli, who passed away because he died like a hero trying to solve this, or try to help people who have this issue. Don't worry about the graph. It's not a big deal.
That's all right. I just showed the current map that's up.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah. So yeah, a big shout out to that guy and all the heroes out there who are sacrificing their lives, and all the health workers out there who are day by day putting themselves right in the face of people who have this illness, risking their lives, risking their families' lives at that, in order to try and save as many people as possible. And people are taking the piss. You know, these people are going out partying and dancing, and they're not socially isolating, and there's people dying, you know? And I know that that's such a call to emotion, but it's also a factual thing. I mean, we have the figures, we have the numbers, and we also have the predictions of seeing what happens when we self-isolate. It does work, and we should be doing it. So why aren't we?
Well, and admittedly, right, the whole point of the social isolation is not that it will stop the virus. It's to maintain the number of people getting, how fast we're spiking, mostly so that we don't overwhelm the hospital situation or medical care. Because eventually, almost everyone is going to interact with this virus in some way. Like the flu and things like that, it's going to spread throughout most of the world, and almost everyone will have come in contact with it. The challenge is we don't want so many people to come in contact with it so quickly that we have no ability to keep up in a response. And so
that's what happened in Italy, right? They ended up having not enough ventilators available because people got infected so quickly, and there wasn't enough testing done in the early stages. There's no social isolation, and so they are overflowing with people. I don't know if you've seen the video that I shared on Facebook. Actually, it's a real video, and while there's no gore and it's not technically gruesome, it is very much a harrowing video. It's somebody walking through the halls of an Italian hospital, and you see that every bed is full with patients. The hallways are lined with extra beds because they ran out of space in the rooms. There are all these ventilators on, and all you can hear are people running around trying to help each other, and the slow beep of the ventilators trying to keep everybody alive. It is so harrowing, and it's a real. This is not some flu that people keep saying. This is. It's just a flu. I've had the flu before. It's not just the flu. Look at this. The rate of spread is spreading faster than any flu, faster than SARS. This thing is infecting like crazy everywhere. Even though we've taken some extreme measures to try and stop it, it's still spreading.
Yeah.
And the death rate is insane. Compared to SARS, this is way, way worse than SARS. And people were so worried about that in the 90s. Do you remember that?
There's a big difference in the sense that, yes, the overall percentage of people who are infected by this disease that die will be low. But the key there is this disease, unlike SARS, Ebola, and all these other ones that are potentially, especially Ebola, that is far more directly deadly, where like Ebola, I need to look at the numbers again, but somewhere close to like 50% of people who get it will die. But it's one of those things that it's much easier to isolate, much easier to see people that have symptoms and such, and transmission is different. Because this one is so easy to transmit and so likely will hit everywhere, that average of 2 to 3% of killing is still significant based off the numbers of everyone. Now, I don't want us to sit here and belabor the point. I think most of all the fans and people that have watched the show are aware of our thoughts on this issue and that it is a severe thing. I do want to spend some time talking about, because we know it's a real thing, some of the things that people are doing or things around it and such that are how we're getting through and around all of what's happening. So still in line with this, but also talking more and more about what are we doing ourselves to do the appropriate thing of social distancing, of if you have been contracted or with someone where you know it's a possibility of doing self-quarantine, things like that, and how you're managing to not be allowed to be out in public as much. And so I definitely want to get into that a little bit. From my own perspective, I was going to bring up that, I have been, like I said, even though I haven't been out and about the little bit I had, and now I'm reducing even further, and that this is going to start my first week of it really being a difference in my normal pace. I've been watching more things online, more of the series and stuff like that I'm into. I have been playing more games. I have some very focused goals for my game playing here now in the next week or two as I figure out how I'm spending my time, as well as just embracing some of those things of technology and stuff. Ken, you had mentioned before about how we've seen Italy and others do singing stuff. I've seen where a lot of celebrities and musician creatives have been sharing their talent online. I think I had shared in social media this last week when John Legend, I believe it was, went on and did a free concert from his house kind of thing. I've also seen where one of my friends who's really into DJ, EDM, dance music, stuff like that, posted several links of DJs doing full-on like concerts online and stuff, streaming them and things like that. And I think that's been really cool.
The human spirit has, I think this is showing all sides of humanity, right? We're seeing people being greedy. We're seeing corporations being greedy. We're seeing people going out and being dumb and buying ridiculous amounts of supplies that they don't need, right? But then we're also seeing people who, I have friends who are educators. They're teachers for primary school, high school, and university level. And they've started, outside of their normal scheduled classes, which they're still doing, they've also offered to do online classes for other students who are either in hospitals or are otherwise in classes right now that they can take part in, as a way of sort of distracting kids whose parents are trying to work and such. And I think that's a brilliant idea. We have all these kids who are running around at home right now from self-quarantine and from self-isolation who are not necessarily sick or anything, but they're going to be, bothering their parents who are trying to work from home. And that's a new difficult challenge, right? Because people are trying to do work and also, look after their pets, look after their children and such. And all these people are putting their time aside to try and help these people out. I think humanity has been really showing how great we can be and how helpful we can be. I've been seeing posts of people offering, yeah, similarly to, as you were saying earlier, offering to help out the elderly, do their shopping for them or go with them, pick up things here and there for them. I actually called my grandparents yesterday for the first time in a while to ask them how they're doing. And they were sort of lamenting that they've sort of been forced to self-isolate. And I was saying that I am so glad that the UK has finally started forcing the very elderly, like I think it's 70 plus, to stay inside. Like I think they pretty much have to stay inside. And that's the way it should be, because most of them are in a mindset where they think, well, I lived through a world war, like I'm not scared of some cold virus. And they're very stuck in their ways. But you know what's also going to be horrible? Like losing 40% of all the elderly from this virus going around. I think that's a bad thing. And I think that we'll be losing some of the most wizened people in our societies who lived through some crises, and we still have so much to learn from. And I don't want to see them all perish unnecessarily. And so I think it's great that the society is getting together and saying, one, you need to stay safe because you have to. We are mandating it, but also the societies are coming together to help these people as well. And that's really great to see. So give your grandparents a call, make sure they're okay. And also shout out, because it's Mother's Day. I'm going to have to call my own mother after this call, after this show.
Scottish Mother's Day?
It is Scottish Mother's Day today. So shout out to my mother and to my gran and to all other mothers in the UK and elsewhere. I hope you all have a good one. I don't know if my mom is listening right now, actually, but I need to. So, mom, if you're listening, you might want to not listen. You might want to mute it temporarily. I'll raise my hand when I'm done talking, because I don't want to spoil what you got for Mother's Day. So I chose this 2 weeks ago. So what I did is it's so dumb because now it's so inappropriate because of coronavirus. So basically, my mother was supposed to retire later this year, and she said that she planned to do a big trip. Her and my dad are going to go travel somewhere, right? Okay. They wanted to go somewhere crazy like Thailand or the fjords of Norway or like I don't know, just somewhere completely different and a once in a lifetime type trip. And they were super excited for it, and they hadn't decided where they're going. And I thought, you know what be really nice is a map that you can tick off the places you've been to, so that once and then freaking coronavirus comes around, right? And my mum's now receiving a map of like, look at all the places you can't go now. Okay, hands raised. I'm not talking about it anymore. Hands are raised.
All right, and okay. I turned on the spoiler tape while you were doing that.
Okay, thank you.
Just for you, sir. Just for you, sir. All right. So that is funny. In my own way, like the things I've been doing this weekend to catch up with it, and kind of this will be my, as I adjust into this, and we'll talk more about what community has all been doing, because we'll come back and forth on this throughout the show. But my dysfunctional deviation pieces. One thing is a highlight on technology. As one, I want to give a big shout out to my brother Earthweaver. He was able to go this last week. I chose to not attend, both to travel, what's dealing with work, and all the various entities that go with it. But an uncle of mine passed away 2 weeks ago, and his funeral was this last week. And so I chose not to go specifically. But thankfully, my younger brother took a video of the funeral and shared it recently in a private YouTube channel for a family. Nice. And I'm really happy that we have technology that can allow things like that. I think back to when your wedding took place and when I was able to stream it back to your folks who weren't able to travel across and such like that, that technology has progressed in such a way that those good things about being able to have like a smaller world and everyone reach out and touch is so cool. Yeah. And so especially in times of coronavirus right now, I mean, gatherings like weddings and funerals, I've seen all over Reddit as well. People have been saying that they had weddings planned, this week, next week, last week. And they've been saying, what do we do? Like, and people have been canceling weddings left and right, not only because the conference centers or churches they were planning to use have effectively closed, but also because they're concerned for their own family and friends, right? And the same for funerals. I mean, at least weddings can be postponed or done online or something. Funerals are really, you can't exactly postpone a funeral. And that's tough. So yeah. I sympathize with you and your family, sir. That's a tough like time. I said, went off well, and it was good that they were able to do that. And a lot of people did show up. But in situations like that, as well as just in general, I have a lot of friends whose birthdays are all coming up here soon, and they had a lot of plans set up for it. And admittedly, we're all thinking the better good and things are happening with that. But at the same time, it is I can understand the challenge when they were very excited to be able to see friends and socialize and do these things, and now they're being limited from. A friend of mine just today had posted like that her and her folks were talking about what to do for her birthday. He said like, well, I'm thinking of the things I can do at home, so I don't know, nap. And I was hoping to be able to present her something like opportunities to do social interactions online, hanging out on Discord, do more group chats, things like that. Maybe more virtual gaming or traditional gaming online multiplayer, but things like I love that Jackbox is out there and such, and there's no reason you can't do a stream or something with that and have a bunch of people participate from their home with their phones and play along.
I had a virtual meeting with some of my colleagues on Friday, and it was a social meeting, right? So we got together after work, and we all had a drink, and we were actually saying goodbye to one of our PhD students who's returning to Brazil. And I said during that meeting, we're all sitting there with a beer or a wine in hand because it was a social event, which is kind of funny to see all of our colleagues sitting there with booze in hand on Skype. Because all week we've been having normal meetings like that, so it feels a little inappropriate, but it was fine. But I was actually saying to them, the Jackbox Party Pack would be a good thing for the future if we want to do any socializing, because it's quite easy to set up. Only one person needs to own it, I think, if you have Twitch as interaction. Yep. So we could quite easily play like a game together, and it'd be fun. And they were all sort of, oh, I don't know. I think they're all kind of scared of the idea of something that's kind of unknown.
That's funny, because that's actually one of the easier ones to get people into.
Right.
Because one of the ones I've been advertising for others is things like Roll20. Go on and play some role-playing games. Play some Pathfinder. Play some D&D or something. What a great time to use these tools that are out there that are essentially free for that interaction. Like Roll20 is amazing in the sense that it gives you everything you need in there to do a full campaign without people having to really do much more than get at their computer. And if they want, use their cameras. They don't have to, but audio, video, a bunch of tools in the game to roll your dice and do everything virtually, so you don't even have to have all the stuff. And you could do full things. It's such a great opportunity to explore some of those things. I did see a post from someone on social media recently that said, let's maybe focus less on this being forcibly being away from everyone else, and a time to more focus on yourself and introspect and really rediscover what you like and the things that you appreciate.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. I have a lot to say about the self-isolation aspect, and I think that's going to be probably a theme of the second half of our show here, because I think this is not going to be a temporary measure, guys. Like I've had a lot of people saying to me, is this going to be on another week, like 2 weeks? When do you think we're returning? And I'm like, this is going to be months, man. This is going to be months, if not longer.
There's a real discussion to that where the level at which we are currently minimizing interaction with others is it's not sustainable. Businesses will absolutely fail if we continue this level of shutdown for a long period of time, and will not come back. So there is going to be a point at which we have to start relaxing our restrictions and figure out how to interact all together again. But along with that, there's also going to be a bit of hopefully those things that we're noticing in society about people being more cognizant of wiping down things. I went shopping at Sam's Club also on like Friday because I needed to actually fill up for maybe having to stay here for some time. And I was very thankful to see that they were wiping down every cart before they gave them to a person. Yep. Things like that. And in general in the store, people were not bunching up on each other and stuff. So it is possible that some of those social things that are happening now will become a bit more norm. Although at the same time, I will respond in the sense that I know I had the conversation with John and some others that I've talked to about how I hope that it also still gets to a point at some area that we can get back to some things like comfortably hugging those we appreciate and things like that, where it doesn't become a complete... Because one of the things about social distancing, within your own house, you're probably okay to all continue doing everything you normally do.
Yes.
Amongst the people that you enjoy. I am in a house of 2 cats and myself, and so when you see me touch my face and things like that, that is because I am washing my hands and doing things like that whenever I move and go other things. So,
and of course, you're not interacting with much stuff that's been touched by everything.
Everything in my house is me, so I am not worried about spreading it back to myself from the things I already have. So when you see that aspect, that's one thing. That's when you haven't, or when you're out and touching things in public, then don't touch your face and get things in you. Yeah,
I think that the sort of truly public aspects of our life are going to be diminished for at least a few months, right? So going to work is going to be one of them. Working from home is going to be a common on many workplaces for the next 6 months, probably. Same with classes, right? Same with any students out there. And church as well, I imagine. So it should be. Anything that involves big social gatherings should absolutely be cut down on. However, the good thing about the virus is that after a couple of weeks of self-isolation, you can kind of safely say that it's not in your home and it's not on you.
Yep.
So if you have friends that are nearby that, don't involve you touching petrol station pumps or gas station pumps on the way and don't involve meeting in a public place, you can probably visit each other quite safely in a couple of weeks' time. I am not a doctor of medicine, so please do not take my advice in the sense of I'm not saying this with scientific perfection. I'm saying that I speculate that is probably a safe move and probably healthy for our minds as well. That eventually we manage to hang out with those who've also been in self-isolation and are safe from the bug, and eventually after a couple of weeks. But we need to get to that stage first. We've had a lot of chat, by the way. I kind of wanted to refer to that as well, if you don't mind. So I'm going to scroll up because we've had a lot of chat. Really do appreciate it, guys. Okay, so Hando says, I've been seeing people at stores using hand sanitizer, put their bags or other items on the floor to get out their wallet to pay and then pick up the bags like it's nothing. The bags will be placed on the counter at home. The kids will touch the counter and then touch grandma. Good job, D-bag. I'm sure you'll have plenty of hand sanitizer at Graham's funeral. Right, I actually found it really tough. I went to the shops as well on Friday. I went to Aldi, and I found myself. I had a face mask on, which, by the way, was a novel experience. I've never really experienced that before. That was strange. I had some queer looks from people, sort of looking at me like some were concerned, like, is this guy got a disease?
Well, because admittedly, people with a face mask is mostly to contain any particulates from you versus filtering you and taking particulates. And so the advice today is still that to wear a face mask if you are sick, but that you don't need to if you're not.
So that is the advice. However, I can say that I've looked into it now and I've read up on it. The masks will help prevent you from catching it from spittle of other people if they're talking to you and breathing near you. It will. However, the average person shouldn't. The point is we don't want to cause a panic and have the actual hospitals run out of these supplies that need them. We actually had some in our drawers from like ages ago, so we already had some. They're silly. They have like patterns on them and they have little faces and stuff. So they're not really.
Tell me you had kittens. Tell me you had kittens on your face.
I don't know what my one was actually. It was just some stupid cat face. I think it was a cat thing. I'm
just imagining if they're in your house in pattern that was absolutely your wife's fault.
Yes, it was absolutely. That's the thing. We were quite prepared. We already had like lots of hand sanitizer as well. Like we didn't have to go and panic buy. We already had months worth saved because we like to go shop at Costco anyway. So we tend to buy in bulk. Anyway, so I went to Aldi and I saw the same thing. I saw I'd say about a third of the people there had mouth covering of some sort. Usually it was a mask, but I saw some people with scarves over their face. Others had sort of balaclava type things covering their entire head. And then I saw mostly elderly who didn't seem to have anything. And that was the most concerning to me. I mean, like, why is it me, 28-year-old me, doing this and not, that 70-year-old looking guy over there who's already coughing? Why is he not use hand sanitizing constantly and so on? But I also found that the cashiers there, the people working behind, actually selling the stuff at the end, they had no latex gloves. They had no face masks. And I didn't see any hand sanitizer behind the counters. So they were touching all of our stuff and all of the things, and yeah.
It is still a work in progress. It is still a thing trying to figure out what the right answers are. And so I understand why not everyone has come up with probably the most ideal situation yet. This is tough. Mm-hmm. This is new. As we were talking more about, again, some of the things people are doing, some of the responses we've had where... like for Hando talking about his initial reaction to things, saying, I'm used to not having to work from months. I'm just in vacation mode now and having trouble looking away from the news. I wasn't I want to get some streaming in and crush some video games, but also keep my job skills up in a way I can. I did tell Hando I want him to create a streaming channel or a content channel at this point to share his perspectives and knowledge about his industry, because as much as I've been focusing on audio lately, I'm like, hey, I have content people I listen to. Hando, you should be one of them. But also when he talked about vacation mode, a lot of people are doing that. When it comes to the news, I highly recommend consuming the news. It's okay. Just be able to provide your correct filter on it to know what are they trying to present, what are just numbers versus things I should react to, things like that. There is a point where you need to at least create a way for you to not get sucked into the news so that all you're doing is consuming it and going, what the heck?
Yeah, things can get pretty panicky. Like on Friday here, the National Guard were deployed, right? And that some news articles were saying that was the title. And you're thinking, oh my God, are they going to be enforcing state borders? This is crazy. Are they going to try to prevent rioting? Is this going to be an apocalyptic situation? But then you actually read into it a bit more and look at a couple of other news sites, and you see they're helping deliver medical supplies. How terrifying! The National Guard delivering medical supplies. Well, it's a good thing, right?
There is concern because there have been stories about, and this happens unfortunately in a lot of governments, where in time of crisis, and I can even go back to U.S. just after 9/11 and stuff like that with Patriot Act, stuff like that, where a lot of potential reduction of freedoms happen in times of crisis when people are emotionally stuck on what's going on, that policymakers can try to slip a lot of things in there. And so at the same time, I always say be aware, be cognizant. Let's see, we are coming up on our break here, but I did want to get through a few more others. My brother Babs put in there and says, work is sponsoring Watch with Friends Netflix evenings to keep people connected. And I actually had a personal piece of that where my friend that was going to come over yesterday but didn't, their work basically said, here's a Netflix thing, did a hangout, and I was fortunate enough to be invited as well. They provided a link and said, here, come watch with me. And I got to, for the first time, check out the Netflix Party, which is a Chrome extension that allows you to chat while watching a synced movie through Netflix with everyone. And so we watched Ant-Man and Wasp, and it was fun. It was interesting. Now it's funny because none of them knew me, and most of them are all from their workplace. But I engaged in the conversation as well at certain parts, and kind of most of us had already seen the movie, not all, but most. And so little things about, like, when Luis was coming up to do the recap, I was just like, oh my God, this is the best part, and stuff like that, and people agreeing and things. So that's actually an interesting concept that I think works fairly well, but it's an idea of still being able to socially interact while you're sitting at your own desk or in front of your TV or things like that.
Yes. And I love that Netflix has actually stepped up and done that, because I think it's probably a feature they had sitting there anyway, right?
I don't think it's Netflix. I think it's a third party, or it's something separate, because there is a thing where that says you can donate or whatever to it. And so I don't think the party thing is directly Netflix. It seems like it's just a extension.
Google extension. Yeah, you're right. I'm looking at it now. It's a Google Chrome extension called Netflix Party. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't think it's officially attached to Netflix, like not the company, but someone who's done this, and they're at least saying here it is and supporting it. Other things that have coming through, like Daedalus, has come through saying he's working on his garden. I saw another place where he said he's smoking a 14-pound brisket right now on the smoker, so he's going to be well fed for the week, which is awesome. Earthweaver talked about maybe doing some one-shots on Roll20, so he's talking about being able to DM a few matches, which would be awesome for people.
Oh, that's cool.
And then, thank you, Hando. ShowX, successfully social distancing for over a decade now.
Also, shout out to Mika Serrano, who said, it's like pneumonia of what I think I remember hearing. By like the fifth day, it feels like you're drowning in your own mucus. It scares me. I'm mapping new songs on Beat Saber. They're easy and normal difficulty because that's all I can handle with my bad shoulder. And now I've discovered Imagineering in a box. Cool.
There's another resource for learning online for her, especially with Disney stuff. I know is a big deal for Mika. So a lot of the resources figuring out, I think that's Imagineering from Disney, if I'm not mistaken, for their parks and stuff they do.
Also went on to say, I almost hugged somebody out in public the other day because I'm not used to being out right now. I had to stop myself and gave them a Vulcan hand sign instead as a greeting. Yesterday, Ken and I went out for a walk with the dogs. And we came across these two kind of elderly-looking people, a couple, and we sort of took a step. As soon as we saw them in the distance, we were already like, okay, put the dogs nice and close to us, because the dogs jump anyway, and we don't want to get the dogs infected for one, and two, we don't want to jump on random people anyway, right? I mean, we're always kind of careful with that. So we hold them back, and it's fine. But it turns out they're dog people. And so they come over, they're like, oh, we love your dogs. And they were asking about the breeds and everything. And they were being very nice, but they kept getting closer and closer. And we were sort of like stepping back, like, guys, like, you gotta respect the social distancing here. Like we're outside and we're on a walk, so technically we're in the public, but that doesn't mean you can come touch it. And they're like, "Can we pet them?" We're like, "No, you can't. I'm sorry." We said that it was like because they jump and stuff, but it was like
at the same time you were like, "Hey,
no touching, no touch." So we decided after the walk, we actually sat down and said, "Look, we're both really uncomfortable with this. How about in the future when we're out walking, if somebody tries to talk to us, we'll make it very clear, like we can talk, but you gotta stay 6 feet back. Like we're being very careful with coronavirus."
Well, there is a real thing there, and because a lot of people have talked about feeling like they have to be stuck at home. That's not the case.
No, not
it is
at all.
a great opportunity to go for walks and to get outdoors and such. The point of social distancing is not to be touching things that other people likely are touching, and to not be in the face of other people talking where you're within range to potentially interact with whatever is in them. And so that's
bring your hand sanitizer. And if you're running low on one of those little portable ones, we've just been refilling it. It's really easy, right? Just get one of those big. If you have a big tub of hand sanitizer, just refill your little one. Don't spend money on tiny little ones.
Well, as well as there are recipes out there for how to make your own essentially hand sanitizer as well. So there's a lot of means out there. Other people that let's see, other discussion there. Although we'll take a break here shortly because admittedly my cider is getting low. The challenges of having a Game Fest. And thanks to El Campo for putting a keganator in my basement and having a keg of cider available.
Yeah, it's too easy, isn't it? Far too easy.
Oh, no.
Miko Serrano also said, I saw someone's dad did the math for the toilet paper. Oh, I saw this as well.
Yeah.
For the toilet paper stuff, he broke it down that someone picking up large bundles of toilet paper from Costco for a family of 4 would take over 230 poops a day to go through all the toilet paper in 2 weeks. So, but you actually raised an interesting point earlier, sir. You were saying that you went to Sam's Club on Friday, right? And you said you need to stock up a little bit for staying inside. We did the same thing, and some of our friends back in Scotland were saying to us, "Oh, so you're panic buying?" And we're like, "We're not panic buying. We know that we're going to be stuck inside for a couple of weeks. We don't have a car. Like going to the store has always been a pain for us. Like I walked to the store on Friday, and it's an hour or 45-minute walk for me to get there." Right, so that's no small distance, and I can't carry it back either. So I had to Uber back, with face mask and all, and the guy told me he sanitized the whole car between every trip, so I tipped him heavily as well, because you will reward that behavior or they won't do it. And so when people say oh, so you're panic buying, no, this is just what I gotta do to minimize my contact outside. I'm not buying 6 months worth of toilet paper. In fact, we're running low on toilet paper.
No, I feel for you because that is still a real issue. Where when I was at the store, because I went to Sam's and then Walmart, and at Sam's there was none. Toilet paper was gone. Paper towels were gone. Facial tissues were all that was left, and most people were buying some. I thankfully have enough in my house because I buy at Sam's normally and get like a 36-pack when I do, and last time I got was before Game Fest, and so I have enough distributed through my house. I think for me. Although I also have seen the jokes that are like the total so it's not about Netflix and chill has changed. I've got toilet paper, but
that's good.
When I went to Walmart, it was completely clear as well. Except they had just come out with a pallet, and they had like 2 or 3 of the generic brand of toilet paper on the shelf still. When I walked by, I saw like 2 in the rack, and people were going down to get them. As they were pulling out a new pallet of them, opening it up, people were starting to pull them off the pallet. I will also say, though, what's been really good, at least Sam's did, and I'm sure, and I've heard from other stores, they had signs everywhere around the store saying limit 1 per person or 1 per family.
That was also on bags of rice. I saw it
all through the store.
Juice,
meat,
I saw milk, eggs.
Meat's a big one. Meat.
There was no meat left in Aldi at all.
Oh, wow. They still had a decent amount of meat. Now, the challenge was I bought some more hamburger meat because, in general, I can use that for all kinds of things. I'll probably be making some more taco salad for the week. But admittedly, also, because my friend didn't come over yesterday, I had planned to make some filet mignon and put together like a nice dinner situation. So I didn't get to do that. But I do have now some steaks for me this week.
Yeah, that's good.
I'll be treating myself as I sit here alone with my cats.
I have to say as well, right now is a great time to be pescatarian because I'm mostly vegetarian with occasional bit of fish, right?
No, there's still usually a lot of fish.
There's loads of fish usually, and if there's not much fish, there's still so much vegetarian stuff because people aren't picking up the either the vegetarian burgers or whatever. That you see like all the frozen aisle empty, apart from the vegetarian vegan section. I'm like, I know where I'm going. That's fine for me. No problem at all. So yeah, check out that stuff. If you guys are struggling for food, eat more fruit and veg. It's a great time to be healthy when there's a virus going around.
Well, the challenge is because I'm doing a little bit of keto again, and so it is a little bit of a challenge, but mostly I'm okay.
Actually, Mika Serrano also has another good point. She says, "I have so sorry." Is that
that's Beck? So yeah,
that's
female.
Beck. Okay, I'm getting confused between Beck and Kuro's new name.
Yeah, Daedalus is Kuro. Mika Serrano
okay.
is Beck.
So many new names to remember. Two's too many apparently. She says, "I have so much fabric. I'm actually looking up how to make masks right now." Yeah, that's a great idea. Like, if you have an old shirt or whatever.
Well, so the key is there are things online for actual patterns for masks and such, and the cosplay community has actually been coming off pretty strong by doing that and making their own, or even for themselves as well as donating. Challenge is knowing where and how to donate in some cases, and making sure you're making them for the full level of like what they need to actually be useful masks. But that is another piece that's also come out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So with this, before we jump back in there, we're going to take a break. I need to refill my drink and all. Come back. I want to talk a little bit about what I have done in the release and a little bit of that dysfunctional, as well as some of the emails we've gotten. Feel free to email us in at VtWShowX@gmail.com. Anything that you've been doing to socially distance, to prep yourself for what's upcoming. And also, I've actually asked, like, what are you doing for, or how has your work potentially been affected? Because I do know some people are working in industries that are still active. I just mentioned that mine has been affected where I will not be going in tomorrow, and we'll be seeing how that works out. But I'd be very curious. We know Hando is in a situation where a lot of his gigs he had planned have been canceled, and I know a few other people in similar situations. So we'd be very curious to kind of know how has it impacted you directly. Yeah. So as much as we appreciate the chat as well, feel free to email it in if you have a long form you'd like to tell us. So with that, you're listening to ShowX on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, all the various streaming panels. And we will be back after this. I'm going to play a song from our friend Brad Sucks.
Hey.
And I forget the actual content of this one, but we'll see. It's called Overreacting.
So, it's an anti-suicide song. It's very good.
Okay, good. So we'll be playing that one now during the break. And we'll be back right after this in just about 3.5 minutes.
You're overreacting.
You're listening to ShowX on VtWProductions.com.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the show. So, as I had promised coming out of this, let's talk a little bit of emails coming off this first. So, I did want to come off from one that I believe came through last week as we are transitioning things between emails. So, hopefully you guys are coming into VtWShowX at gmail.com and not our old email address, but this was one that came into the old one. So while I don't think this one is specific to social isolation and such, I think it is an always geeky. So this coming to us from Serathis says, Dear Show X, Geek Cred intensifies! My brand new Star Citizen Ready PC has arrived! The specs are not a huge upgrade, but it was for free? Sort of. An i7 9700 instead of an i5 8600, a GTX 1160 Ti instead of a GTX 1060, and 16 gigs of RAM instead of 8. The only downside was that it came with only a 500 gig SSD, which is nothing when it comes to gaming. I agree with you, Serathis. I have lots of storage and I always run out. I was having this conversation about the specs on the new consoles and my disagreement with 1 terabyte or less storage being enough. Anyhow. So I just stuck my other half terabyte SSD inside to get around that problem. Apparently, it was not even needed. The built-in storage is actually PCI Express and not SATA. I ran a test that clocked it at around 1 gigabit read-write speeds. The thing boots up so fast. Maybe I should have just used the built-in Windows drive compression. Apparently, it is very good and barely slows anything down. Anyway, the huge levels of Doom Eternal load in less than 5 seconds. Star Citizen stopped whining about not having 4 gigs of memory, but I think the setup is just a tiny bit below what is needed for VR. No, it's not, sir. That's plenty for VR, just so you know. Plenty for VR. I'm still running on an old 6850 chip from i7, so I'm like 3 generations behind you, and you're fine. Which I don't mind that much, seeing how there are not great games for... What? Wait! Whoa, you're saying a falsehood here. Not great games for VR yet, and I'm not sure if I'm one of those people who gets sick while flailing around silly-looking goggles on their head. From Serathis. Serathis, you're wrong about the VR piece. There are awesome games out there. I will talk a little bit about that in my Geek Cred section. Also, the sickness comes from motion games, which I'll also talk about, so get back to that. But congratulations on an upgrade. It is always exciting, and one of those things where I feel like it gets you in there and improves life in general. All right, sir, on to you if you would like to read one of the emails.
Absolutely. We got several in, so let me just... So we got one from Pusser, which was actually a video. Do you have that downloaded and such, sir?
I can show the video. It's funny because she actually shared this with me before as well.
And me, yes. I said we could possibly show it in the show, and she did email it in, which is good.
Let's see. I will acquire it shortly. So while I get hold of that, go ahead and jump onto Yamez's one if you would be so kind.
Sure. Yamez actually sent 2 emails. So I'll send the first one that says, enduring, in speech marks, enduring this social distancing with some Animal Crossing, COD Warzone, and catching up with some games I dropped a while ago. Planning on getting back into Star Citizen as well. Ooh, Star Citizen. People are going to be interested in that, I think. This is the second email. As for work, my shop has to have people manning it. So we are minimal manning with 2 people in the shop at most. The nights there have gotten so quiet.
I can imagine. We are in similar workflows, and so I understand, Yamez. I really do.
Yeah. For my work, it's I work in a university, so in research mostly. All classes are now virtual, including finals. So until next semester, which is quite a big deal. Also, there's a rumor going around that I don't know this for certain. I just saw this on Reddit. That MSU is going to soon be doing pass fail instead of graded to make up for the fact that everything's virtual.
Interesting.
So, but apparently it's opt-out. It's going to be opt-out as well. So some people are complaining, saying, "Oh, I'm going to get a 4.0. I don't want to."
I was going to say there's a big challenge if you are one of those students who's actually getting really good grades, because you want that highlighted, especially as you go into any professions or anything like that. You want to be able to say, like, "Look, I got through this college thing and I busted my rear and did it this well." So I can understand not
absolutely.
wanting just a pass-fail on that.
Absolutely. So thank you very much for the emails. I'll appreciate, folks. Are we ready for the...
So I won't be able to play the audio of it, I don't believe.
Oh, that's a
Wait,
shame.
I might be able to. If we're really quiet, I can do a thing.
Oh, sir, come on. Can you not have a virtual audio thing and just make it automatically play into... Shouldn't you be able to play in the same way that our other stuff?
Yes, I should be able to. I just don't have it set up. Let's see.
Take
Okay,
your time.
let me.
You've got other stuff to...
You suck. Okay, let me do it this way then, and I will make this happen. So
Okay, you work on that. I'll go back to the Twitch and look at all the millions of messages that we have.
here, I can do it. I think right now. Okay. So you're gonna have to be quiet though. You suck. Okay, let me do it this way then, and I will make this happen. So.
You work on that. I'll go back to the Twitch and look at all the millions of messages that we have.
Here, I can do it. I think right now. Okay. Actually, you're gonna have to be quiet. Wait, I have to do two things. I know I have background noise coming through too, and I don't know where it's coming from. I apologize, everyone. There's going to be an echo if I do it this way. See, I'm telling you, Ken, I shouldn't do it this way. Let me do it this way. So this is going to be a thing from Pusa, and yes, this is horrible, but I'm doing it this way. Is it echo coming through? I have it coming live through one of my various channels. Let me turn that off first. All right, can you read Yama's other email then? Because he sent up a new one.
No, I read them. Wait, you sent a third one? I've already
read both?
Two. Yeah, I read both. They're both a sentence long, so it's quite...
Okay, I missed that. I saw that he had done two, and I was like, wait a second.
Okay, thank you so much for all the messages, folks. We do appreciate it. And remember, you can send more emails to VtWShowX@gmail.com. Okay, so Daedalus also says, I need masks for my job, and I can't get them. I have to wear a full respirator right now. That's crazy. That's actually really crazy. That's
okay.
Kind of a scary imagining thing to think about.
I found the thing.
Okay.
Now I should be able to do it. Okay. So with that in mind, I was like, I know one of these things is on playing our audio back. So this is from Pusa, and it's a little video she put together. Hopefully it will play correctly, and you'll hear it.
Hello, ShowX. I am getting through this quarantine by being angry that nobody is gathering in large groups. Nobody is hugging and kissing. Nobody is licking their paws in the subway. I am getting through this crisis by looking for you. I will find you and I will infect you. Lots of love, long time listener, first time writer, Corona.
So with that, essentially what she did is she made her own video of coronavirus as a puppet and is advising people to not follow coronavirus, to do all the bad things like go out in public, socialize, share as much as possible, and things like that. And so she's doing that as kind of a comedic piece, and we'll come back to do more of that in the future.
So she sent me that in the first place, and I responded to her saying, that's really good. Did you make that? And then she responded with the virus saying, yes, Ken, I did. And I was like, oh, all right, okay, that's proof. Okay.
Oh, that's so good.
Hando says, oh my god, I missed that Pooster voice.
Sorry, I had to turn off the echo too. Okay, there we go. Now we're good. I was coming through too many places. So, anyhow. But yes, no, so thank you, Pusa, for that. And for the email, we very much appreciate it. So other things like what I have been doing to get through and done, I have been watching a few things. Like I said, this is kind of preemptive into. I'd mentioned the Netflix party thing, doing Ant-Man and Wasp. Also, I've been actually focusing, and I think I'll have time to finish things. What? So, I am almost caught up on Baruto, the animated series, the follow-on for Naruto, where I think I'm only about 7 or 8 episodes out from what is currently where they're at, which is somewhere around, I think they have 147 episodes out, and I'm somewhere around 140. And so I've been catching up significantly to that, which makes me surprised, actually. I thought I was way behind, but I've been crushing those. I just finished watching the full season 3 of the Castlevania on Netflix, the animated series there, which is brutal. Definitely not for kids. Violence, sex, gore, language, all of the things. But truly fun and entertaining and kind of epic in how it got to where it finishes. That's been fun. Also, just finished up, equally adult, the Harley Quinn series, all the way through that, which has been quite nice. I'm about an episode back on Picard, but I think it has been awesome. And the last episode I thought was pretty darn epic, the one prior to this last week's one. And so I'm looking forward to what they've done with the next piece of that. And I've also started watching, I mentioned a little bit, I've been watching Dave, which is the series from Little Dicky, the rap artist that's out there who does a lot of entertaining kind of things. He has gotten a series, and it is fun. And so I've been watching that one as well. So those are kind of the main things I've been watching when it comes to shows this week and such. How about you, Ken? What have you been doing that hasn't been so geek this last week to kind of get you into and through? Because you've actually been home from work longer than I have.
Yeah, so it was... I'm not even sure how much time has passed, to be honest. It feels like I've been here forever now. So the thing is that we already had work from home. It was already a thing, right? Like you can do that if you so please. Usually you had to have a reason for it, like you had a delivery coming or I don't know, you're feeling a bit off. But generally speaking, 1 day a week from home was kind of the accepted norm. And I didn't really take it as a full day. Usually I would just leave early a bunch of days instead. So I would usually come in for like 8, 9 o'clock and then leave at like 3 or 4, right? And still do work when I get home. But, you know, that's how I made the most of it. That way the dogs aren't going to be alone for too long. So it's been, I think it was last Thursday. So it's been, about 7 working days or so I've had to do working from home since then. So we very quickly moved to a completely online Zoom-only thing. So Zoom is a technology I didn't actually know about until I came to the US, because in the UK, we just Skyped everything. Skype's kind of the norm. Zoom seems to be pretty much the exact same as Skype, but with some additional functionality, including remote control, so you can control people's desktops if they allow it and request it and such. Yep. You can change your background to a virtual one, regardless of having a green screen. And that's quite a powerful technology, actually. I'm quite impressed by how well it works. And you can also share specific files, and you can, when you share screen, you don't just share your main desktop, you can also share a specific file, a specific PowerPoint. You can also share, if you have the app, your Android or iPhone as well, I believe. So it's got some really nice functionality that I'm actually quite impressed with, as well as a recording functionality based inside it. So for virtual classes and the likes, it's very useful. So I'm really quite a big fan of Zoom so far. So we moved everything to there. It started off with just we were working from home, just continue as normal, but just imagine working from home. But then very quickly, all of our meetings had to get scheduled to online as well. And that made us have to move towards Zoom. And then we started to realize that because we didn't have the day-to-day contact of, you know, tapping somebody on the shoulder and saying, hey, I have this problem, can I discuss it with you? We realized it's quite important to start organizing more formal sessions for discussion. So we now have twice a week, I'm in 2 different labs, so it's quite complex. But basically, twice a week, I need to send in an email of updates of my work to one lab, and once a week to another lab. And we also have a total of 3 weekly meetings for each lab as well. So we're all getting together and constantly just for a chat, just to say what's going on. You're not expected to have done anything or do anything. There's no formal proceedings. We just go around and say, is everybody okay? Is everything all right? And I think that kind of thing's important. Now, I don't mean necessarily professionally, and I do mean that to an extent. This is important for virtual settings for professional work, of course. But I want to also highlight this is particularly important for your social well-being, especially if you live alone, Wayne. It's very important to have social contact still. We can't all become hermits suddenly, not talk to anybody. So whether you're talking in Discord or having Skype sessions, what Kin features my wife has started doing is she is now messaging her parents and sisters once a day. They all message each other just to say everything's okay, we got food, because they're around the world, right? So communication is also more difficult anyway. So they just message once a day and make sure everybody's okay. And I think that's during this kind of crisis, which is literally an emergency, it's good to know that your family's okay. And it also makes sure that everybody feels like they're not alone. And I think that's important. Even if you think, I'll be fine. I think it's good to at least have I've been jumping in Discord a lot in the past week. That's been my go-to, is I've just been jumping in Discord, sitting there. Quite often Hando's there and I'll chill it with him. Otherwise, if he's not, I'll jump into like the Star Citizen chat and say hi there. Since I know those guys now, that I've met most of them. And it's great. It's nice having those technologies available and making the most of that. But as for what I've actually been up to in terms of how I've been coping, I've actually cut down on reading, because I was reading when walking to work mostly.
Yeah, because you're doing a lot of Audible.
Right, exactly. And the other time I would do it is when I was walking the dogs. But because we're now in self-isolation, Kitten realized that she won't get outside the house otherwise. So now we walk the dogs together. So all the time I would normally listen to books, I don't do anymore.
Yeah.
So now it's only if I'm solo playing a video game that I'll put on an audiobook. So the book that I was expected to have finished in this past week, I've barely progressed with, which is a shame.
Well, but that is an interesting change to your normal,
right?
your everyday routine. I understand. Because I'll do the same thing. If I'm running by myself, I'll listen to music or an audiobook or something like that. But if I'm with a group, I want to chat with, I will tend not to put the headphones in and actually be there available for their conversation, even though I'm usually trying not to die while talking. And so it is interesting to hear that difference just in your pattern.
Indeed. So it's been a bit of a screwy thing, especially when I'm trying to meet my goal of 48 books this year. And I don't know how many I am through, actually. I've not been tracking it, really. I've been updating what I've been reading, but I haven't kept track of the actual numbers. Let me just quickly have a quick look. So I'm on Goodreads. If everybody wants to add me, I'm always looking for friends there because I love having suggestions for books. Quite often, Hando recommended the book that I'm currently reading, Until the End of Time by Brian Greene. I just said, okay, you recommend it, sure, and I just bought it.
Nice.
I think that's the best way to. With films, I can't passively watch a film, right? You kind of have to give it your full attention. So, but with books, listening to books especially, you can kind of just have it in the background if you're not enjoying it too much, and kind of get through it in a less intense manner, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But it turns out I'm enjoying this book anyway. But my point is, if anybody sends me a book that I'm not enjoying, I'll still get through it probably. I just it won't be as prominent a read. So far this year, I am 10 out of 48 books. So I'm 21% through, and I'm according to this the calculation I'm guessing it does on the website, I'm on track.
Nice.
I feel like I'm slightly behind after this past week, but we'll see. I have 3 books I'm currently reading though, which is The Blinding Knife, which is the Lightbringer series book 2. By Brent Weeks, I think his name is. Until the End of Time by Brian Greene, and Dracula by Bram Stoker, which I'm still slowly trying to slog through. That's a bit tough to get through.
Some older books have language that is a little, I don't know, not as easy to read.
I got to the section where it was all about the letters back and forth between the characters, and I was just like, this is one, kind of hard to track, but also two, very dull because they're talking about potential partners for all the girls, and I'm just like, I don't care.
I'll admit, I haven't actually read Bram Stoker. I've watched and I'm aware of, but I haven't actually read.
The first chapter is awesome. The second one's pretty much a slog so far. So yeah, the book stuff has been a bit of a bit annoying. That's really changed my schedule. But I would otherwise be reading more, but being Audible based is kind of hard, honestly, now, with the change of lifestyle. I found that we've been cleaning a lot more. Just because we're here every day, right?
Yeah.
So we're both working from home now. So, quite often if I was at work and my eyes start to hurt, which happens, once an hour or so, I'll either stand up and look out the window for 5 minutes, or I'll go talk to a colleague or whatever, and relax my eyes a little bit away from the screen. Here, I can go bother Kitten, but she's working as well, so I don't really want to bother her. So I find myself doing tasks around the house. Like I'll end up going and put a load of dishes on, or I'll go take the dogs out for a short jaunt to make them go to the bathroom, or whatever, right? And it's slowly but surely that not that we were dirty before, but we found that
you find yourself that you're significantly cleaner.
Well, yeah, it means like on the weekend when normally we'd spend more time cleaning, we don't have anything to clean because it's all done. So that's been strange. We've mostly been trying to. The best advice that I've heard that I would give to anybody as well is set yourself a schedule. During this time of self-isolation, especially if you're alone or you're working from home a lot, it's quite easy to fall into I'm home, I should relax. Yeah. And then you either struggle to do work or you struggle to maintain daylight hours. I know some people I've been talking to have said that they've ended up, staying up to 3 a.m. and getting up at noon every day because they have no reason not to. I think that's an unhealthy thing. It is actually unhealthy for your body to do that. Sticking to normal sleep schedule is important all times. But also I think for your mental health and your mental well-being, even if you don't have much on, just schedule little things like, say, at 4 o'clock you'll message your sister, or I don't know, at 6 o'clock you always have tea with a biscuit, right? Little things like that in your schedule, including chores and stuff, things that you have to do as well as nice things. Having a schedule is really important for our mind. It's quite interesting because you see this with animals as well. Animals in zoos, there's been reports of animals in zoos who've had their schedules changed, have been having behavioral shifts. Like they've been acting out and getting aggressive, or they get like overly energetic when they're not getting out of their pens in time because their normal schedule's been disrupted. And if it happens with such a simple creature as, say, a zebra, I mean, think about us. How schedule dependent are we? Entirely, right? We think in schedules.
Yep.
We're so linearly schedule based.
I'll admit, this weekend I had goals yesterday because I had a schedule set up for what my original plans were until I was no longer going to interact with anyone. That it got completely screwed up, and instead of being productive, I essentially sat on the couch all day. I am purposely going to maintain my schedule coming up this week, where I'll go to bed where I normally do. You know, I like to sleep on the couch during my break time so that the cats can sleep with me because I won't let them in my room right now. But I'll go to bed, and so my alarm will go off and everything like that. I'm hoping to get up with my alarm, still at 5 in the morning like I normally do, and go get dressed and get downstairs and not just sit in my pajamas all day, and then see what I can do for work to try to keep a somewhat normal schedule to be productive. Because I do think, like you're saying, Ken, that's very important and will keep my body more in rhythm. Now, because it'll be curious to see what all I can do work-wise, I may transition some of those things into, hopefully, working out a little more regularly, because that's one of those things that's always beneficial, doing as much working out as you can, as well as projects around the house and things and such. So it'll be interesting to see how we all deal with that when it comes
Absolutely.
to it. I do recommend keeping schedule. I also recommend, and Yamez put it on there, about books that others might read. He recommended Red Shirts because that one is a great book. It's, if you do the Audible, it's read by Will Wheaton. And
oh, nice.
If you actually, or if you just read it, but it's a really fun one in the Star Trek universe-ish. Like not truly Star Trek, but Star Trek-ish. It is references Star Trek. And it definitely takes a lot of its things from there. And it is a really fun look at the universe as though you, from the perspective of those who would be considered red shirts on the show. Highly recommend. Opportunity there for anybody who'd like to share. Feel free to email us or to chat it if you'd like. Of anything you would like to recommend for books for people to read in this time that they are spending some time with themselves.
Also, check out our Audible link there in the chat. Sorry, it's massive.
That is not just an Audible link. That is a messenger / That is awful,
Okay.
Ken. What did you do to us?
It's because I said to a friend, okay, here's another version. Oh, God, it's also massive.
Ken, where's your Bitleys at the moments like this? What are you doing to us?
What was that one? We used to have one. I can't remember what it was. Whatever. Just check out those links for your... You get 3 free audiobooks for clicking on that link.
Awesome.
Plus another one, I think, because you clicked on the link. You get 3 for joining normally, but you get 4 if you click on that link, I believe.
And also, as Miko threw in there, self-published authors are also discounting books, like Mika and John. Both of their books, I think, are discounted right now if you'd like to check them out.
Guys, throw the links in the chat there. We're happy for you to do so. Please feel free. Also, I want to give a shout out to the chat where there was a bit of a discussion between Babs and Earth about sports and colleges.
Yes, my brothers are talking about how this is impacting with sports and such, because basically all public sporting events, professional stuff down through, have been canceled. We've talked about a few levels of this within my family. My family, being a Nebraska-based family, is huge into college sports and such as a whole. My younger brother works in college sports. He's an assistant coach for volleyball, for women's volleyball. Whereas generally throughout my family, we're big supporters of college football all the way up through professional. I'm probably one of the least, but in that we're even talking about how there's a tournament we support that my family hosts out in Nebraska for middle school track and field events that we do each year. And we haven't heard a status yet on it. We're hoping it'll still happen because it'll be in May, but we'll see. And they're basically having a conversation back and forth about how sports in general may change due to all of this, or could. And there's a lot of things when it comes to education in general, where how many education facilities are supported so significantly by sports compared to just the regular education side of it. And I'll admit, I don't know much about it.
Well, I don't know much about it itself, but I can give you an outside perspective, which is that, in the UK and in most of the rest of the world, universities are generally not supported by sports. So, and as much as I'm sorry I know that you're in that job field, Earth, But I don't necessarily believe that universities should be funded by sports. I think the university should be funded by the government, and just like I think most things should be funded by the government. But
there's a
I don't think
discussion
against
there.
sports. It's fine. Like I think if it's supplementary and it helps education, fantastic. But I think there's also a problem depending on it for kind of obvious reasons right now, right? I mean, yeah. Earth says sports are popular, yes, but only the major sports. The reality is football and basketball pay for all the other sports. It would be interesting to see if they could come up with a model that doesn't see the smaller sports disappear. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do have some problems with that in the UK as well with sponsorship of sports is kind of a scary thing because a lot of the research that's done to the sports sciences are sponsored by the likes of Lucozade, right? Which means that when Lucozade says, does this energy drink help with sports? Guess what happens? All the results seem to say yes, which is funny because who'd have thought that, drinking something that will, in the average person, will just make them fatter, or water would be a better substitute.
Okay, but there's a conversation there. If you're using those products as advertised, they absolutely do help. Like things like any of the amino acid / energy type or better to drink type things, where you say things like the Gatorades or those kind of things of the world, right? They do help, but if you read them properly, it's one of these for how much water you also drink and such. Now, you're right. A lot of people just drink them as though they're the common beverage, and then we'll get to the level of idiocracy where you water your crops with a Gatorade, which does not work.
Eric also says, the reality, Ken, is your school is only open from the sports. I'm well aware. That doesn't mean I also am aware that this government is entirely held up by capitalism. Doesn't mean I'm for capitalism either. I mean,
well, and that's the problem. There's an opportunity, I think, in a case of all these discussions, where there's a balance point, right? That maybe you don't have to go 100% one direction or the other, that you can find some happy medium that takes on additional aspects of some of these other ideas while still keeping true to some of the others, but maybe letting some things go. That I think is where the real good answer ends up, is somewhere in the middle. It's just hard to see sometimes, especially in times like today politically, where it's either one or the other, and they're very opposite. But anyhow, with this, though, I want to transition us, if we will, over to a little bit of geek level things about what people are doing geek to get through all these trials and such.
I'm a geek. Are you a geek? Geek Cred, level up!
So, on that geek notice, I do want to give a little bit of what I've been doing geek related, and then give it back to you, Ken, for similar. For myself, I continue to play the games I play, so ARAMs and stuff like that, because that's my happy place. Yep, too bad. I'm happy there. Other things I have checked out, Call of Duty Warzone, which is free for anyone who wants to check out the Battle Royale mode of Call of Duty. They introduced a new solos mode, and I've checked that out a few times and failed horribly. I am better in a team, I guess. Also, while I was not social distancing with both Mika and her husband over the last week, I got to check out on their PS4 the Final Fantasy VII Remake, the demo that's out there of that, which is very pretty. And I admit I want to play, but will also say I will not buy a PlayStation just to play it. So, I'm left in my little PC Master Race elitist sad world where I can't get all the games on PC yet.
It's the only thing that tends towards consoles is exclusives, and that's a sad state of affairs, isn't it?
I want exclusives to die. That's a personal thing. Let me play it on the system that's best, make everything crossplay, so if you like consoles, play it on consoles. If you like PC, play it on PC. But everybody play together. Also, I got to check out Skyrim VR. And so as we were talking about VR a little bit before, Skyrim VR is interesting. It's something that definitely benefits from mods because Skyrim's a little older and I need that graphical improvement. Thankfully, Mika and her husband have done some mods on it. And so I got to play their version, and it was interesting. At the same time, they were using, and it does support multiple types of locomotion. They were using traditional slide locomotion where you use a thumbstick to walk. I am not ready for that. And so I started feeling those little bit of getting warm, getting sweaty, starting getting a little nauseous from it kind of thing, because it's just, my brain needs to practice more. I had the same issue when I tried playing Elite Dangerous in VR, because you had mentioned downloading it. I started playing it because it has it in VR, and I touched it, and I could only play about 10 minutes before I was ready to throw up, and I had to stop playing.
Oh, what a shame. Looks like we can't play it. We'll have to uninstall. What a shame.
Well, I'll have to play it in 2D, and that'll be my thing if I have to play flat screen versus 3D.
So Hando and I tried to play it. Was it last night, 2 nights ago? I think it was last night. And we downloaded it, and we were super excited, and we jumped in, and yeah. So basically, what happened was we tried to do some of the initial missions. Turns out I had a mission, but Hando didn't for some reason, and we couldn't find any way for him to have the initial setup mission. So he seems to be flowing around. We were trying to do something basic, which is meet up in the game. Now, I've played many games where meeting up in the game is a bit of a challenge, right? Like you're playing World of Warcraft and you're playing on different factions or something, real pain, right? But at the same time, if you ask somebody, pretty much anybody can help you. Problem with this game is, one, nobody plays it, right? There was 3,000 max players in the past year, I think, which is nothing. Secondly, the forums, when you ask any questions, the last questions that were answered were years ago as well. And so we eventually found solutions to all of our problems. Like, for example, we tried to move the ship forward, and it kept failing, and I was like, why can't I move? And it turned out I had 3 different modules that were out, including my weapon system, my landing module, and my mining scoop, all of which can be activated or deactivated by a hotkey on the keyboard. One of which didn't have a hotkey, so I had to go into the mapping of the control scheme to change it so that I could tell it to actually...
Yeah, it's... Uh-oh. Hopefully that's not me. I see a pause on your end, Ken, and I don't know if that's my end of things or if our...
I was trying...
Oh, there it goes. It caught up.
Oh, sorry.
No, there was a pause there in our conversation where you had a great expression, but it wasn't coming through for a second. Elite Dangerous, to me, the challenge is it's feeling old. And maybe that's because I played time in Star Citizen, but I almost feel like I need to remap most of the controls to mimic Star Citizen. I already had to match or remap the rotate versus yaw and pitch for the horizontal, because doing the mouse where I went to the side and it started rolling, I was like, this is dumb. Why is it doing that? Where Star Citizen does it the other way, I was, oh man, that hurt me.
Yeah, I know. I also got a bit of sickness. Just going, oh God, what's happening? Oh God.
Yeah, I was not happy with their default control scheme, and I think Star Citizen's done it much better. Difference, Elite Dangerous is an actual game that's out, where Star Citizen is not. But I already, just loading the game, wanted to mod the crap out of it to make the graphics better. God, I'm an elitist, and I realize that. It's so bad. But I was looking at it, I was like, no. I like what they did with VR. I love that they took the heads-up displays and moved them further to the sides and made them disappear until you looked at them, so that in your periphery it looks gorgeous. You look over and then it pops up and you can interact. It's like, okay, this is cool as heck. But because it doesn't support the touch controllers, it was like I'd look at something and I wanted to just reach out and touch a menu item, and it wouldn't, and it was annoying and such. So I was just like, oh, it still is better set for 2D, for flat screen, and for keyboard. So we'll see. I may try to check it out again, but right now I spent all of less than an hour in it and I walked away.
Understandably, yeah. So we've uninstalled it for now. I hope that's not a permanent thing, but we were not enjoying it whatsoever because I'm
still curious about the VR, because I know when it first came out, the VR did not work well, but I haven't really followed it since. So we'll see. Speaking of good VR, though, I will say, and Mika brought it up earlier, I just finally finished Moss. And Moss is adorable and amazing and beautiful. You can see it. I streamed it just yesterday, and you can see me
I saw you were, yeah.
I unfortunately didn't realize that the audio from the game wasn't coming through, even though it's quiet. It's got beautiful sound. But it is one where it is so gorgeous. And it gave me, I would argue, one of the best moments in gaming I've ever had. As silly or as maybe a high, I don't know, maybe not for all, but it was immersive as heck. And we had done something where I've started to realize more and more that the character Quill, the main mouse that you're controlling in Moss, interacts with you way more than I expected, and did a thing where it was a puzzle situation happening, and when we finished it, she came up and looked at me and did a thing where she put her hand out like this. And Moss, again, Quill is a character that uses ASL to communicate with you during the game.
Okay,
Will actually do sign language. She did this little thing. I was like, really? And I took my hand in game and gave her a high five. And she reacted, took the high five, and actually did a little jig afterwards.
Oh, cool.
And I about lost my shit because,
Understandably. Yeah, that's cool.
oh my God, it was adorable. It was just like, this is phenomenal that one is VR already. So you're in the world essentially, but having her react to me like that as a character, and I realized more and more she would do things if I waited too long and wasn't controlling her and was kind of looking around the world to get a sense of what the puzzle might be for that level. She would look and like point for me, like, hey, over there, like as like a hint in game, like she saw what we needed to do. And I was just like, oh, this is brilliant. Holy cow, this developer did so good. So if you have a VR headset of any kind, you need to get Moss. It is phenomenal. And big shouts, big welcomes, because I'm seeing it come up in chat right now, to Pusa. It sounds like Pusa has joined the chat. And so
we played your video earlier.
Yes, we did. We played your puppet, your coronavirus puppet, and very happy about that. So yeah, there is really good VR, and things like Quill, and the other one I always bring up is Beat Saber. For people who are just getting into, are the least sickness-inducing because you don't move. You react to the world around you. You're stationary, and normally it is moving through the world in a way that your brain doesn't connect to your body motion is what causes nausea or causes you to somehow feel not right about the experience. Where in this, it's direct, it's sitting there, it's easy. I'll always talk about Beat Saber. It's beautiful, it's fun, all kinds of fun maps to play, and it's there. I need to figure out the multiplayer mod for that one so I can play with others. But that's another one I've been playing. And the only other thing I was going to comment on is Facebook has a new thing for those who are on it that they are betaing, I think, right now. But it's a new interface that I think actually mimics more their mobile app. But one thing they added, which every app out there I think needs to add, is a dark mode. They finally added a dark mode, and I like it. But in doing so, I'm enjoying the dark mode. But I'm hating that it feels like the software is not updating constantly, so I get message things that, hey, a new message occurred, and I click it, and it goes away, and then it comes back, and I'm like, I acknowledge that message. What the heck? So it's not 100% yet. Anyhow, that's my geek. Other things, so talking all this, Miko was very excited to watch me play through some of the game because she loved it as well. Mewed 911, so Pusa coming in saying she's into his house. Thank you very much, Pusa. It's been way too long. We're talking about how much we miss you. What? Mika just told me that she has up to 3. She builds up to 3 high fives with a dance after each one. Dang it! I need to go through and finish all that game again and get all the little in-between stuff. Also, Muse coming in. Pusa saying, what is that, Snickerfit? Mr. Corona is having fun while I'm quarantined. So one of her, it sounds like we showed the video, ways of getting through the seclusion of such is making puppet videos with her little Mr. Corona, her COVID-19 puppet. So appreciating that as well, and says she's making them daily. And so very cool. We'll have to look. So Pusa, where are you posting them? Are they on YouTube or such? If so, please link us in the IRC so that others can find out where you're putting out your content.
Absolutely.
Right. Ken, with that, what have you been doing that's been geek this week? And then we'll finish up with some links and thoughts for others if you need things to contend with over this time frame where we are distanced from each other.
Absolutely. So, like I was saying, I've been on Discord playing a lot of video games this week when I've not been doing work stuff, and that's been awesome. I've been really enjoying hanging out with Hando and other members of the community. It's just been nice to see everybody and have that, do you remember, usually Christmas is the time we all sort of hang out because that's when we're all free to
when we're off and we're able to, we're all at the same time.
But now is the best time to do that sort of stuff, guys. Like those projects you want to do any writing or whatever, you got to do that as well. Also, speaking of Geek Cred, that's one of the things I did in the past week is I wrote another short story I was proud of. I'm actually particularly proud of this one. I think it's probably the best thing I've ever written. I've showed it a couple of people, and it seems to be, I've had some very minor criticism. Very, very minor, which is nice to hear. So yeah, I'm gonna continue going down that alley. I've been looking at places to possibly publish a short story, which would just basically be like a magazine or a competition. I'm just trying to find the ones that, like, there's some that like cost money, and I get that if you're like if you want to actually be a writer, like you need to put some money into to fund the competitions themselves and such, entry fees and such. That makes sense. I'm not big on that just now, so I'm just looking for the free stuff. I don't really mind if it's going to cost if it's free, right? I don't want to spend any money on it. Um, I noticed the New Yorker has one, for example, that's completely free for writers and short stories. You also have to be wary of things like copyright. So I'm keeping my eye out for that. Um, but yeah, so I've been doing some writing. I've been playing some video games. Listening to more music than usual as well. I finished God of War last week. I
Nice.
mentioned that before, and I've started playing Red Dead Redemption 2. So I properly gave it a shot.
Ooh. I'll be curious to hear how that goes for you because I have not picked up Red Dead because of the mass backlog of games I need to play, but I've only heard good things about it.
Well, so far it's good. It feels a little clunky at times. For example, I feel like the system behind how do I best describe this? Um, okay, so when you're riding around on your horse, on your horsey, you get a few items that you can use, like your shotgun, you get your rifle, you get your pistol, and your horse is a kind of like storage place, which is fine. Um, the problem for me is that I feel like I'm spending just as much time making sure I have the right stuff on me and checking that the relationship I have with my horse is good. And I don't know, it's just stuff that I don't necessarily care about. But for some reason I find myself doing a lot. I don't know. I just find that really very odd. Um I feel like I should be focusing more on the actual gameplay instead of worrying about these meta side things like storage. Like I know games like Metal Gear Solid back in the day kind of survived on that in some respects. Like you had to work out how you could best fit things into your inventory and do your own sort of bin packing problem, and that was part of the fun for some reason. But I personally don't see it. I don't get it. I'm not into it. And but otherwise, the game is fantastic. The storyline's great. The acting's really interesting. In some ways, it's a bit of a walking sim, a bit of a walking simulator. But I don't really mind that because I find myself enjoying the beautiful landscapes. There's often interesting conversations between the main character and other characters. I've had a couple times where I've had choices being made available to me. So, for example, I was allowed to either fight this horse, or I had to how do I or kill a bear. um, so my choices were either I was out hunting and I had the choices of what to do, and I had to either go back on my horse and get in with a deer that I had already killed, or I had to go kill this bear. And at first I was like, I'm gonna kill the bear. First I'm gonna go kill the bear. So I ran towards it, shot it twice in the head, and I was like, easy. And it just turned to look at me and ran at me and just decimated me, mauled me completely. So that wasn't so fun. I don't recommend that approach. I ended up taking the gear back. And I've also noticed it's kind of like Grand Theft Auto in the way of the controls. So if you think of
Yep.
horses like cars, and you think of the normal jumping, and it's clearly Western, feels different, but it still has the reminiscent elements to GTA. So that's pretty much what I've been up to, sir. That's pretty much all I have to say about all that.
Okay. Well, as we get into things, and I guess officially it's Geek Cred aspect, I did want to share with some people as we get close to the end of the show a link or a news story about some other things you can do, as we've talked about, to help pass the time. And so coming from Lifehacker, they have an article here that talks about things you can do where there's some services out there allowing you to download a bunch of free games. And so from both Good Old Games, in this case GOG.com, as well as the site, the other one is itch.io, which is more indie, they are offering a whole slew of free games that you can grab hold of. A lot of them are essentially indie type games, but they're free. And so you could jump in there and play those while you maybe have some extra time. Also, and thank you, Pause, for bringing it up, because that's exactly what I was going to mention. On the Epic Store, as much as people are still struggling with accepting that Epic has their own store and they don't necessarily know if they want to support it, they've been pushing hard and releasing a lot of really good free content, and they continue to do so. And currently, free are the Stanley Parable and Watch Dogs, the original one, are free on Epic. And so check that out. There's a lot of gaming services out there providing either free or inexpensive games. I know there's a lot of things on sale on our Classic with Steam. I just picked up Borderlands 3 and started playing through it a little bit, as I realize I've been playing lots of different games, although I need to focus. I'm trying to finish some. So there's a lot out there. So this one, the article basically says, it's a great time to expand your horizons and play more video games. GOG, the platform formerly known as Good Old Games, and indie game store itch.io are both running, quote, stay-at-home promotions, giving away dozens of games for free as part of a larger sale on their platforms. Nice. GOG's free games are a special promotion as part of their current spring sale, while itch.io's is free and discounted games as a response to the current need to stay inside. Between the two collections, you can get up to 50 free games, creating a huge library of new games to try while you're hanging out at home and adding to an already solid list of free games. And let's see, GOGs will be available through March 30th, and itch.io says doesn't have an end date set yet. But that's something to keep an eye out for. There's a lot of opportunity to play some new games. Also, I'll recommend there's some games out there that you can play, like we had said about Jack TV's games, all their party packs. I also recommend Pretended Zixie, which we haven't done for a long time, which is the online Card Against Humanity game that everyone can play. We talked about Roll20, which has a lot of free resources to allow you to DM and play your own games like that. We highly recommend things like watching all the things that are on Twitch. You can check out our archives and our backlog of shows we've talked about in the past if you feel so inclined. As well as there's a ton of things coming out through Twitch. They've had a lot of artists playing free concerts, things like that. There's a lot of shows in general to watch on that. It's an opportunity to catch up on a bunch of old anime if you want, a bunch of those old big series if you want to catch those. There are so many opportunities to reach out and grab content to keep yourself entertained. Check out the Netflix party and maybe watch things with others. That's something we might have to try hosting this weekend. Some VtW Netflix parties. And so if you have some recommendations of movies you guys would like to share in the group, feel free to email us in at VtWShowX@gmail.com, and we'll maybe come up with a list and some dates that we'll happily share some movie watching with all of you. Things like that. As well as if you have any other recommendations for things we could do to pass the time in our socially distanced time frame. So that's what I got for that. All right, Ken, it is time for us to wrap things up for the week. Would you please do us the honor of reading us out? At the same time, I will say I will be in Discord right after the show if anyone would like to chat there. And beyond that, I'm not sure what else I'm doing with my day. So we'll see how long I'm in there. But I'm definitely going to be there right after.
I'll be calling my mother for Mother's Day. But other than that, we'll see what happens the rest of the day. So hopefully see you guys in Discord. If you have any trouble connecting to Discord, give us a shout. We're happy to provide details and such to anybody who's interested. You can tweet us to find out at VtWShowX on Twitter. You can also email us to VtWShowX@gmail.com. Additionally, you can also find us on Facebook.com, search for ShowX there, and you can find us nice and easily there. You can also support us on Patreon.com. If you go to patreon.com/ShowX, you can provide us with your pennies, a minimum of $1 per month, and that keeps the show alive. You can also, where else? Instagram. We've just started using our Instagram, so you can check us out there if you would like to. And we do recommend it because we're starting to use it more. We do announcements for the show stuff as well as going to hopefully post some other things. Ideas of what to post there, also welcome. You can also check us out on reddit.com/r/ShowX. And I think that's everything. Be sure to subscribe and like us on all the various platforms. Upvote our stuff on Reddit and share to your friends. We very much appreciate that. And thank you so much for all your support, guys. We really appreciate you and everything you do for us.
Outstanding. So with that, you've been listening and watching ShowX on Twitch and YouTube. Feel free to check us out on all that and interact with us on the various channels that we have out there. We'd love to hear from you and email us in to the show. We'd love to have it. With that, we will catch you again next week as we continue we'll see if we're continuing our social distancing at that point. Thank you all for listening, and hopefully you have a wonderful week. We'll catch you again next time. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye. See you next zombie. Good night. I forgot.